Welcome to Taking a Career Break with Katrina McGee, the show for high achievers who are feeling burned out or unfulfilled.
Hi there, I'm Katrina, your career break and sabbatical coach and author of the best-selling Taking a Career Break for Dummies.
And I'm James Hammond, your podcast host and producer. Are you ready to take a life-changing break that leads to a happier, healthier, and more fulfilling life? You're in the right place.
I'm going to break down my proven framework that's helped nearly 100 clients achieve transformative breaks. Are you ready to change your life? Let's go.
Hello and welcome to episode 1. And this week, we're going to ask Katrina a bit about herself, why she wrote the book, and what is to be expected on this week's podcast. So Katrina, hello. How are you doing?
Well, James, I'm good now. I'm excited that we're doing this.
Yeah, nervous and excited is my feelings.
Yeah, I love that. We call it scared sighted. It means you're doing something pretty noteworthy.
That's great to know. That's a great nugget to start off with. Tell listeners and the viewers, who are you and why did you write the book?
Good stuff. Well, surprising no one, we are living in a very work-obsessed culture, and the pace at which we're running is not sustainable. And I've noticed both from myself and many of my clients that the high achievers are really struggling to keep up with all of the demands of their time in life, but especially in regards to work. And, they're feeling like I was burnt out, but also stuck in place, shackled by these golden handcuffs. And at that season of my life, when I felt very stuck, very exhausted, completely misaligned with where I was, I took a risk. I quit my corporate job and ended up taking a life-changing 20-month career break to travel the world. But this was 2013, and back then it was taboo. It felt incredibly dangerous. I wondered if I was just throwing my life away. Was I sabotaging this career and my MBA degree that I'd worked so hard to achieve? But through that experience, I found freedom, fulfillment, and happiness in that career break. And, that even involved losing the person that I loved the most during that time. And I still was able to come out of that feeling like I was a better, stronger person, both personally and professionally. And I knew at that moment, I wanted to help other people find the same things, that freedom, that fulfillment, and that happiness. So now that is what I do. I am a coach who helps people manage the planning and the mindset around taking a break. And because of this work, I was actually contacted by a big publisher to ask to write the book about my framework and to share stories about my clients' wins and their experiences on a break. And I honestly didn't know how to make it work. I was like, I've never been a writer before, but I jumped in because I saw it as a golden opportunity to help more people, even more people than the people I was helping one-on-one, to find that freedom, fulfillment, and happiness in a new and more accessible way. So that is how this book came to be. And that tells you a little bit about what I do.
And how do you think this podcast is going to help people? Because this is a huge subject right now, isn't it? Maybe even post-COVID. I don't know if it crept up pre-COVID, but I think since we had the pandemic, a lot of people are asking a lot of questions, right? So how do you think this podcast will help?
Well, some people love to hear it versus to read it. They also, I think, learn through conversation. So I think the conversations we're going to be having are going to be super helpful. I view this podcast as an extension of my personal mission, right? So I took a break. It changed my life for the better in so many ways. And then I turned around and became a certified coach so that I could help other people one-on-one. And then I wrote a book, right? And so this is just an extension and another way to reach people. And I think on this podcast, what's really special is that we're going to be able to go deeper into various parts of the book and bring them to life in a new way and share more real life examples to help contextualize and help people visualize what a break could be and how to overcome the mental and logistical barriers that might be standing between them and the break that they really need.
Yeah, and this is going to really deep dive into your book, right? Which is great because we can really specify and get granular on the details of each part of this whole journey of career break. And I think we should probably tell people, how did we meet? I think it's probably good to clear that elephant in the room.
2 characters.
Who's this guy just speaking to Katrina? I think we should probably clear that up.
Yeah. Do you want me to start or you want to start? I can dive in. Yeah, actually, it's so interesting. So your podcast was suggested to me by someone as a podcast that I might make a great guest for. And, being that I did travel around the world for 20 months, I felt like I've got a lot of travel stories, but also I think of travel differently, right? Traveling for a very extended period of time, I had very little experience pre that solo traveling, I had traveled abroad once for like a weekend or something. So I really felt like I had something of value to add because helping people mentally and logistically prepare for a break enables an entire population of people to take the kind of travel that you talk about, right? The people on your shows a lot of times have had grand adventures that you can't have, at least here in the United States, on your, 18 days of PTO that have to last you a whole year. It's really hard to have those kind of travel experiences and that kind of transformation. So I viewed the work that I do as kind of like this trampoline that will help them bounce to the next level, right? To be able to take those kind of trips. So I sent you a pitch. You wrote me back right away and you were like, yes, done, be on my podcast. And then I got to show up and be on your podcast and I thought you were awesome. And it turns out, it seems like you thought I was awesome too. So
I think we're pretty aligned in a lot of thinkings and the way we probably view life, actually, if I'm honest. Let's not
yeah.
go too deep here, but I think we are pretty close in the same thinking of how we should probably structure our life. And I think my podcast is an extension of me. So that's why I get people like you to come on and talk about your experiences. I think that helps my listeners and they get an idea of what you're thinking in terms of not just the travel portion, but also as a career break, because that's quite important.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I'm sure more, of the pieces will come out as we talk about everything on this podcast. But I feel like it's time to address the elephant in the room. James, who are you and why are you here? Like, what do you do? Tell us about you.
Yeah. So for you, I obviously had you on my podcast and I thought we kept in contact. So for this podcast, I thought, it'd be great to get your book, which I've read and it's amazing, to break that down and offer like the vocal part, right? And offer an audio version of it, but also get your words outside of the official words in the book, right? Because the book will have a very structured content. You could probably elaborate on a lot of those points, but you couldn't do that because you had probably a word count to stick to. So I love that portion of people who are doing something different in life. And for me, I've kind of always been winging it, hence the podcast name, Winging It Travel Podcast. I've always kind of got a job, quit, gone traveling, no real plan. So that's where this really intrigues me, this project. And I thought, well, let's start this. Let's see how it goes. I've been doing my podcast for 3 years. I've traveled quite a bit. We have similar interests. And yeah, I've just kind of been traveling since 2013, I normally say, traveling work visas, travel. But I have kind of changed with my thinking from the last year because last year was a year-long trip. I learned some very valuable lessons in that, which we'll get into throughout the podcast, I imagine. So I think you're the perfect person to speak to about that and about some of the feelings I had with that trip. Amazing travel-wise, not so great in other areas of life. So there you go. That's a bit about me.
Yeah, that's a little bit about you, James, but like, come on, man. You're over here speaking with this like British sounding accent, but you don't live in the US and you don't live in England. Like, can you tell us a little bit about where you are and what you've got going on, dude?
I don't have a home. No, I'm I'm from Norwich in UK, so just east of the England, if you like, the England.
Okay.
And that is a very small city if you're going to compare to US cities, if you're from US or Canada, which has big cities but sprawled out. But this is a very small city. But in UK terms, it's far from anywhere. In real life terms, in Canada terms, it's close. It's a 2-hour drive from London. And I grew up there, went to London to study music. And then halfway through, decided that music wasn't really for me. I was good at it, but I didn't like the industry, or I thought I wouldn't like the industry. So I thought, do you know what? 2 years after my degree, at that point, let's go traveling. So 2013 come along, January, just packed all my stuff up, left home, and kind of been on the road since. About 70 countries later-ish, 3 work visas or 4 different countries living in. Yeah, that's where I am.
And where are you now? Tell us where you are now.
I'm in Vancouver, BC, Canada right now, trying to get the Canadian passport.
Nice. All right, James. Well, I'm satisfied now. I feel like you gave us a proper intro. So I appreciate that. Like, how should we end this first podcast? What's something we really want people to know?
I think people should know, probably asking the question, what type of vibe will this podcast be and what to expect? So what are you thinking with that?
Yeah. Well, I feel like this came about in a really magical way. I had written the book. You had the book. You started reading the book and you'd asked me if I would ever resurrect a podcast. I had a podcast back in 2017 called Break the Norm. And it was just too much work to do alone. And you very graciously offered to step in and help me make this happen, like doing a lot of the tech stuff too, which I don't want to do. And I so appreciate you for that. And, behind the scenes, making stuff happen. And so then it went from something that felt like work to something that felt like fun. So the vibe on this podcast is definitely more upbeat. I'm only here because I enjoy hanging out with you and I believe in the mission of the work I'm doing. So this is a passion project for me and it's fun. I hope the same, is true for you. And as far as what to expect, I'm here to share the things I know. So if you reach out to me or James with questions, we'll try to incorporate those into the podcast. But I'm really here to break the book down in a different way and shed new light on it, to share anecdotes, client stories, personal stories, on top of tips and actionable insights and nuggets that you can apply to your situation, whether you're considering a break, planning a break, on a break, or returning from a break. Wherever you are on that journey, I've got everything in my book that you need, and we're going to break all of those topics down kind of in a randomized order on this show. And I'm really, really excited about it. And we're planning to do that in a very short segment, short episode format, which I hope keeps it fresh for you.
Yeah, that's key, right? Keeping it fresh. I love the combined aspect of sort of anecdotes and stories and nuggets, because I think they're two different type of aspects of learning, right? Some people are going to really enjoy hearing our stories and maybe some real life anecdotes relating to the specific subject. But also, I think some people just need that bit of a push, like, here's what you need to do, a bit more structured, bam, bam, bam. Let's talk about this and how you go about doing that. So yeah, I'm really excited to get this two-pronged attack on the podcast going. And I think, I know it's going to be a success.
Boom.
There you go. Is that the end of the first episode?
I feel like we did it. Episode 1 done.
Great. Okay. Well, to the listeners and viewers, watch out for updates, and we'll be updating you with a new episode very soon.
Want to leave the rat race behind? Come check out Breakspace. It's a new community for current and aspiring career breakers and sabbatical takers, just like you, who are ready for a life-changing experience. Breakspace is a one-of-a-kind launchpad with hands-on coaching, dynamic courses, and genuine connection. Don't go it alone. Visit breakspacecrew.com to see what all the hype is about.